Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Chelsea Echo and welcome to your reaction pod to Liam Rosenior being announced as Chelsea head coach, not manager, because apparently that's not a thing you can say anymore. It must be myself, Liam Beneventi, it's Daniel Childs, and we are here to give you everything that you need to know about Liam Rosenior and his arrival at Chelsea Football Club. First of all, Dan, let's go through the feelings and the emotions. How do you feel about Rosenior's arrival at Chelsea?
I'm trying to be as optimistic as possible because we spoke about this in the pre-Man City pod that I think there's a lot to like about Rosenior. I think his work has been commendable. He's worked in some difficult places. Um, I think the more, and it may just be an age thing of kind of going through so many coaches as you do at Chelsea. Every time there's a change, it's less kind of you know it's silly to kind of grow a deep emotional connection at times, or just a belief that this coach is going to stay here for a long period of time. I think you have to be you know wise to the fact that coaches last very very short lengths of time at this club, and all you can really hope for is that they forge a good connection and they create some good memories, and then you move on to the next one. Really, that is the way I feel. So I think it's in our interest that Rosenior's a success at Chelsea, and I think he comes across as a good communicator. He comes across as, I think, a good guy. I think the fact there is historical kind of significance to this appointment with him being the first Black British coach to become Chelsea's head coach. I think Matt Law spoke to Paul Canaville, and like the potential historical significance of this moment might be really positive. Obviously, hopefully that means that Rosenior's successful, and kind of will spoke about like maybe it leading to more opportunities. So that's kind of an overview. I'd say emotionally, like I think I'm just am not distant to it in the sense that like I don't care what happens, but I think we all have to just kind of grasp that the high likelihood is this could go south, or this ain't going to last very long. I think that's just kind of it. So I think you kind of, with each passing one that happens on the clear, like you kind of are, well, my investment in it as kind of a broader big thing that's long term just completely goes away, if that makes
No,
sense.
yeah, I agree. I think look, the Black British coach thing I do want to touch on because I put a tweet out yesterday and I was saying, I don't think a lot of people appreciate how much of a big deal this is because I know it sounds well, two white guys talking about it. I know some people are probably going to be rolling their eyes, right? But I think the fact that Chelsea have a black coach in charge for the first time since Ruud Gullit, and obviously people talk about in terms of the top flight, there's not really much representation in terms of black coaches. In fact, I think it's only Nuno who they picked that who is a coach who's obviously a BAME background, um, who is there, and you look at people talking about Darren Moore and lots of other coaches that have been there, and it's been great to see them, right? But there's been a consistent thing where there hasn't really been very much representation, and I'm not talking about it like some people did in my comments, right? Because when I put the tweet out, there was in an hour about over 102 comments, and that should tell you everything you need to know about the sort of response that got. Um, Calling him
I can imagine. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine as well that like it's I think it is a fear of disappointment as well, especially with the online culture,
mm,
um, that is broader than football, broader than just football. Um, and I think Rosenior even spoke about this quite extensively in the interview he did with The Athletic about this. And he gave quite a good quote about what he hopes his career leads to. Um, but yeah, I think that like that's significant part of it. Like I think he speaks. One of the good things I would say about like Rosenior is that he's probably one of the only Chelsea head coaches ever that has a real like extensive library actually of written work.
mm,
There was a time just after either he was just about to come to the end of his playing career or had just finished with the Guardian, where he wrote. There's a bunch of articles about a variety of things. Obviously, this is before he fully got into coaching, but there's a coach's voice piece you can read when he just finished at Hull. So he's someone that there's a lot of material out there to kind of understand his thinking. He speaks extensively about the inspiration of his dad, Leroy, that people will know. I think, especially of our generation, will know for his punditry. But obviously, he was a coach as well. And there's a clip doing the rounds about what he kind of learned and kind of gained from his time at Torquay, and kind of the job that his dad Leroy did at Torquay, and kind of the football he tried to play. So there's a lot of emotional investment. He also comes from a family that is kind of local London based, so there is that connection there as well. All of this is kind of its backdrop. It's not. It doesn't guarantee anything. Like I really liked Graham Potter and his story before he arrived at Chelsea, but unfortunately, as we know in this very cruel and harsh game, I sometimes think words like emotional intelligence and having a bit of nuance and thinking about things in deeper ways as someone in football, that as much as the game has progressed in a sense, I think there is still a mindset that will use that to beat you. Will use that as an excuse. Like, I was never of the belief that the reason Graham Potter failed at Chelsea was because he was a decent human being. Like, and I just would never sign up for that. I would never sign up to the reason he failed was because he had emotional intelligence, or like he thought about the game in a more complex way. Like, I would never sign up to that belief, because I just think it leads us down a pit where everyone has to be a psychopath basically to succeed at a big club. Like, I'm not signing up to that way of thinking. So I feel like, I don't know about you, like I think there is a willingness from me, and anecdotally, I've spoken to people about this as well that kind of surprised me. That, like, there's a willingness for Rosenior to succeed, not only because it's Chelsea and we want Chelsea to succeed, but because of he seems like a good guy. Like, he seems like someone that I think thinks about the game in a positive way. That doesn't mean if it goes wrong, I'm going to sit here and not criticize him, like, obviously, but that I think that's something behind it as
No,
well.
I agree. I agree. I think my worry is the fact that he's such a good bloke that it's going to be very, very difficult for him. If I hear the boys did well at any point, I am going to lose my shit. That is one thing.
The boys gave everything.
No, but the thing is, that is what worries me, because when you talk about the nuance, right? I I do think about some coaches like that, right? And I think the step up and the understanding, like, you only know you're there when something goes wrong, and when it comes down to how he reacts. I think if Graham Potter is a good example of how not to react. You look at, I know it's going to sound ridiculous, right? But Mourinho was a guy who was a translator, who worked as one coach, do whatever, blah 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 blah, right? You look at those two as two polar opposites of basically two coaches that kind of developed from nothing. Obviously, two very different paths. One of them is one of the best ever, right? Won the Champions Leagues, multiple. I get that, right? But there was a certain sort of drive to Mourinho which Potter didn't have. Like, Potter just didn't have that. So you've got to look at Liam Rosenior and think, right, when people obviously show the clip of him yelling, funnily enough, at an interpreter, at I think was it PSG or was it Lyon they were playing, and obviously, you know, there is a bit of fire about him as well, but all of this stuff we're talking about, I still feel we're kind of clutching at straws a bit, but I do feel that's also kind of where we've been left. Because when you think about the quality of coach, I get what they're saying about Liam Rosenior, and they view him as a long-term option, a long-term successor, someone who can build the team, yada, 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 yada. We've heard that about 4 different coaches now. So,
yeah, I mean, it's the same. It's the exact same. It's the exact same playbook as Maresca. Like, it's almost word for word. Like, you can find all the briefs about Maresca in 2024, and it was identical. So no one should take those seriously. Like, I think that Chelsea fans and just in general, like, again, you can hold, I'm a big believer in this, you can hold multiple thoughts at the same time. We can sit here and feel that, like, we want Rosenior to succeed for a variety of different reasons, and those reasons can be personal, dependent on your experience and what you bring to it. But undeniably, like, I've said this, I wrote this on my Substack, like, he arrives on the back foot, and I think we have to just address that brutal reality from the off. You may not like that he arrives on the back foot, and people will have a level of cynicism and their guard up from the off, but that's just the environment he walks into. That's not a guarantee of failure, but um, as you said, we're 3 permanent coaches. This is the 3rd permanent coach on the Clear Lake. And it's another coach that has not worked in this environment before, has not worked at elite clubs, has not, under Roman, with the exception of Frank and Sarri, I'm pretty sure everyone else that came in permanently, especially, but even an interim like Gus Hiddink and even Rafa Benitez, despite our dislike of him, had won something significant, had worked at very, very big clubs under immense scrutiny. That is something that I feel that is still a kind of ingredient that, until I see it disproven, I feel is an essential thing you have to have when you walk into this role. Because effectively what Rosenior has to do is learn that on the job. And I think you're right. The moment Chelsea lose a game or we go through a difficult run, I think what people want to hear, apart from when Maresca started to lose games, is what people don't want to hear is that it's kind of okay. And it's kind of just, it doesn't really matter. And whether you mean that entirely, you have to, like, all people, whatever you say internally, however you act internally doesn't matter, because fans can only gauge what your team does on the pitch, how you act on the touchline, and what you say in front of camera. That at the end of the day, those are the things that will shape the perception of Liam Rosenior at Chelsea. And it may seem simplistic, it may seem kind of almost cartoonish, but you've got to come out when Chelsea lose a game and you've got to make it abundantly clear that it's not good enough. Or like, and I'm not saying there aren't nuances within that. Like, if we lose closely to and tightly to a big team, a big rival, obviously there is nuance within that. But if we can't beat someone getting relegated at home, what I don't want to hear, as Maresca did last year, is start having to go about the crowd environment. Because the moment you start doing that, people will perceive you as someone who is trying to pass the blame onto someone else. And I just think those are things that are kind of non-negotiables about this role. And I fear that is something that's going to be a litmus test really quite early on, I probably assume, because, Chelsea have Arsenal, they have Napoli away in the Champions League, they will have difficult games. And it's how, I agree with you 100%, it's how he reacts to that. It's unlikely he's going to do a Tuchel and go and instantly transform the team and Chelsea don't lose a game till like April. It's very unlikely that happens. If it does, wonderful, but I fear that probably isn't going to happen. So if it comes within the first like 5 or 6 games, obviously that's going to be very informative.
I think that is what worries me the most, because, like you said, he's on the back foot, and I think a big thing which he's coming into in terms of a war zone is you're going to have the fan protest at the Brentford game. You've already had the CST put out their statement in terms of how much they disapprove of the club and how it's being run currently. So he's coming in, and for me, if I'm him, I see it as an opportunity, because you mentioned Tuchel there, and I don't think there's very many, if any, people that have the capacity to do it, and I don't know if he has. But when you think about a coach who was a great unifier, I go in terms of the best ones I've seen in my lifetime. people talk about Fergie or whatever, right? But I feel that there's a unifier. Fergie was good, but he pushed people away very easily as well. Mourinho and Tuchel are the two best I've ever seen at someone who can unify a club at an elite level. Fans all the way through. And what I liked about what Rosenior was saying about being a coach now is you are a coach and a manager, and it's aging men or something like that, right? And I think that there's a real opportunity to really unify everybody. And I know there's a lot of people that are going to be listening to this and saying, "What utter waffle! What are you talking about? This is ridiculous. Chelsea should never hired him in the first place." Yeah, you're right. Chelsea should never have hired him in the first place. But guess what? We've hired him now. So what are you going to do? Not get behind him? You know, you're just going to sit here and moan all the time. Like, it makes no sense. And whilst he's in the job, like Dan said, look, I think it's fair to say, in terms of us as a pod, Dan and I can be very critical. Like that's just, you know, we have been for the whole time we've been doing this, especially of Tweedledee and Tweedledum upstairs, which we will continue to be because they don't know what they're doing. However, when it comes to a coach, yes, we have been critical of what they've done, but also when they've delivered, we've given them credit where it's due. And it's unfair on Liam Rosenior for us to not actually give him an opportunity to showcase what he can do. I think that's unfair, and you know, I appreciate people saying, "Look, I think one of the best quotes I've seen was Lucy, and she said we used to shop for Harrods at our managers. Now we're shopping wherever we are now, and getting a manager that's currently seventh with Strasbourg in the Ligue 1." It's like, yeah, that does say a lot about where we are as a club. However, I'm not gonna accept that. I'm not going to accept that Chelsea are where they are as a club because we shouldn't be with the amount of money that's been spent. However, what I will say is we are where we are. The only way is up. And I think having that is an opportunity for Liam Rosenior. I say the only way is up. If it goes absolutely diabolically wrong, it's going to go absolutely diabolically wrong. Dan, I'll be honest, I don't think he'll be here next year. I don't.
Well, they've briefed to do you think just to Matt Law or like to some there's a line that's come out is that Champions League is critical. That's the word that's been used, which effectively means that it's again where we were this time last year for me. It's a and to be fair, it's this every single year as Chelsea for me. It's a dividing line between success and failure. If Liam Rosenior fails to get Champions League football, he shouldn't be here next season. And then if he isn't here next season, again, I will sit here at the same way I felt about Maresca going wrong. So I'm not changing my tune at all. The sporting directors have to be sacked. Because if Rosenior doesn't get Champions League football in a very short period of time, which you could feasibly turn around and go, it's a bit unfair for him to kind of be judged on that in a rapid period of time. But that is the parameters that have been set for him, and he knew that when he signed on the dotted line, he had to qualify for the Champions League. Again, the pressure has to come above him because questions would be asked. Why did you hire this guy? It would be even less time than Maresca. It would be another head coach, surely. I mean, I have to say I'm not that hopeful anymore, but like surely at that point, you ain't remaining in a job as a sporting directors anymore. So it's quite clear. Like if you think that like we're gonna find out very quickly, like in terms of like I know things move very quickly in Chelsea circles, you know, in Chelsea history, like a lot happens in a short period of time. But he's gonna have to earn the right to stay here for another year, and he's gonna have to earn the right to gain trust. But that is every single coach, unless you are someone who's a club legend who has a natural inbuilt connection to Chelsea fans like Frank did. It's very, very difficult to walk into a job unless you are Guardiola. I think if we appointed Klopp, despite his Liverpool connection, there'd be instant
Yeah,
respect to him. There'd be instant trust because of what he's done in his career. It's just whatever the rivalry is, like people, I think you have to objectively respect. This is an incredible
yeah,
coaching mind. This is someone who's gone and he's a unifier, right? That is a very those are very small examples. Like the majority of the time, even if we appointed someone of higher caliber to Rosenior, they still have to earn the trust. I just think it's intellectually kind of just honest that they have to earn the right to gain more time. I remember Paul Machin of Red Mem TV spoke about this, and because everyone talks about the Klopp story and that, well, he was just given loads of time, and he says, no, no, no. Klopp earned that time. He earned that trust. He earned that patience. And this was even a guy walking in who was already at a better place than Rosenior or Maresca was. But he had to earn that trust at a club like Liverpool, who weren't challenging for the Premier League title at the time. Arteta, in some ways, has had to earn that trust and earn that authority at Arsenal over a period of time. Everyone has to do that. If Pep kept losing at City, if Pep didn't win the Premier League title in his second year, there would have been major calls. There were already calls for him to maybe to leave, or kind of there were question marks over him, if you remember, in his first season at Man City, because it did not go the way many people
Fraudiola, wasn't it?
anticipated because Chelsea won the
Fraudiola.
league. Yeah, like he was getting battered 4-0 at Everton. Um, so that is there are just kind of simple things that remain. If he goes on a horrendous run and Chelsea fall out of the race for the Champions League, both you and I are going to be sitting here, and I'll sit here and go, yeah, sure, that I wanted it to work, but mate, it ain't working. We need to change. And it won't just be, I want another head coach. I want new sporting directors, which is where I sit right now. So, like, I don't think I'm being inconsistent. I don't think Chelsea fans should not be like, everyone talks about backing the manager, and it's just like, it's another one of these very simplistic terms. What am I backing? If I'm not going to back
Yeah.
someone who loses every single game pretty much and fails to meet the objectives of the club, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to do that. I want him to succeed. If he succeeds and gains my trust and gains tangible evidence that he's doing things that work in Chelsea's favour, then I will back him. Then he will earn my trust and faith. Sorry for going on a
No,
rant, but that
it's
is kind
true.
of just, there are just simple things that just kind of shouldn't be said every time we have a new coach, but we still go on this roundabout where I think very simple things kind of get lost, especially in the Clear Lake era of kind of just people just being absolutely flummoxed that when
Mm,
a coach fails or puts out a series of bad performances, fans aren't going to
mm,
be happy about it. When that was the case under Abramovich as well, when we had far
mm.
better teams.
I do think that if the structure was there, I'd actually be far more excited about this appointment. But because the structure isn't there behind him, I'm more worried for him. Like he is an exciting young coach, and you and I have said this. We've actually discussed Liam Rosenior on this pod last year before, where we talk about how exciting he looks and how intelligent he sounds and what he's doing. And but I think we can all agree this job feels a little bit too early for him. Now, if anything, he should be getting this 2-3 years down the line once he's left Strasbourg and maybe he's, I don't know, gone to Bournemouth and he's done really well there, and then he gets another job and he maybe goes abroad again, goes like an AC Milan or something like, and then he goes to a big
Yeah.
club. To go from Strasbourg, all due respect to Strasbourg, because I know their fans are obviously very unhappy about this because they feel like a feeder club, and I do feel for them in this situation because what's happened here is it's just very much become like they're a non-entity, they're a youth team, and I think that's very unfair. But that's another conversation for another day about multi-club ownership and all that sort of stuff. But he's obviously bitten someone's hand off for this job because if someone was to come to me and say, Louis, we want you to be the new face of Match of the Day, and I've got the fucking credibility of this podcast and like the other stuff that I've done over the past 10 years, I'm nowhere fucking near Match of the Day, right? Am I going to turn it down though? Am I fuck? Am I fuck?
Yeah, no
So,
one. If someone came to me and like, yeah, I guess in our industry, like, yeah, if someone came to me and says you're going to be Sky Sports presenter. You're going to replace Dave Jones on Super Sunday. Whatever my feelings about the football media and my frustrations, no one's
No.
turning that job down. No one is. So there is a bit of that. Yeah, like why would you? And let's be very real world about this. Coaches who arrive at Chelsea, coaches who arrive at these clubs know there is a fat severance package awaiting them down the line. It might not be as ridiculous as others, but to us, to the average person, the payouts you get for being sacked as a football head coach would do us very like. If you think about the life that some of these coaches like, yeah, sure, there is the sort of the competitive and the professional embarrassment and and obviously the strain of it. I understand it, that it's not just a walk in, have a laugh, walk out. But there is a financial compensation that comes to it if it goes wrong quickly. Obviously, we all know that as well. So you can't blame people for taking these roles if Chelsea give it to them.
Mm.
Like that's what we get back to. Who are the decision makers at Chelsea? Who are the people who put these people in these positions where they're probably over promoted too quickly? Who are the people who buy players who are probably also over promoted too quickly, or in an environment and placed under a scrutiny and pressure that they're probably not ready for? Again, like we all come back to the same thing. So if Rosenior fails, it's the same line I said about 2 years ago. If Maresca fails, Clearlake failed, the sporting directors have failed. If Rosenior fails, the sporting directors and Clearlake failed. It's the same line of thinking. But mad things happen at this club. We know Maresca's proof of it. Like I said this in my reaction, I think I wrote about this. He does not have to be here 5 years to achieve good things and for people to have positive memories of him. The Club World Cup is that final was one of the best Chelsea performances I
Yeah.
have ever seen. That I will remember that performance. I remember my experience in Rocklaw. Maresca was a part of that. He will forever be linked to that memory for me personally. Some of the, battering Barcelona. I know you said about, battering Barcelona is one of the best performances and nights people have had at the bridge for quite a while. Beating Liverpool both times. You do not have to be here 10 years to create
No.
those memories. Maresca can walk away kind of feeling like I actually did what I was asked to do, really. Like, and I created some good memories. That's all you can do. So historically, if he's lasting to 2032, he's probably becoming like our greatest ever manager. Like if you're doing that, you are breaking past the barrier. Like it's like what do you call it? Crossing the streams in Ghostbusters. You're probably breaking into a new dimension of Chelsea head coach if you're lasting
Yeah,
that long.
especially this lot.
Um, or or to be honest, he's just not insulted them in public, which means he remains and we're really bad. I don't one of the
Which is
two.
one thing, by
But
the
if
way.
he's lasted that long, he's done something. He's done something
By the way,
special.
that is one thing that worries me quite significantly. Is when he said that Paul Winstanley was an excellent operator in football, and I heard that and I went, "Oh no!" I went, "Oh no!" I saw that and I thought,
Louis goes into the sun. Was it the sunken place, the one from Get Out, where it's like you're like,
yeah.
oh no, here we are again. He's getting cold
I,
sweats.
I got cold sweats looking at it. And I was like, "Oh no! Like, don't say that. You're gonna lose everybody saying that. Don't say that. Don't say that." And I was like, "Oh god!" Like that is the one thing which he's Clearlake's guy, which is one thing which he's going to have to contend with. So I don't know how he's going to do that. Because, like we were saying earlier, I'm not going to lie, if I'm in his position, I'm looking at the severance package. I'm going to be here 6 months. I'll take that. I'll go get another job. Because realistically, I don't see it working. I don't see him lasting.
And I think at Chelsea now, like, do you actually come out looking worse in this mad environment?
No.
Like, I actually think Maresca can argue I ain't look any worse than I did when I walked in. I think Potter's the only one. Like Potter's the only one, and also because
Pochettino.
he chose horrendously for his next club.
Poch.
Yeah, but Poch had. Yeah, but Poch again, like Poch's time. If you actually objectively look at his time at Chelsea with the circumstances around, it wasn't a disaster.
No.
He actually left on an upwards trajectory. So actually, his work I know obviously it's all in hindsight, right? And it's all easy to look at now. Like he's gone to the US job and it hasn't been a miraculous success. He's actually had some embarrassing losses, but his work up till that point and the work he's done in his career, I actually think like if Rosenior gets sacked because he missed out on the Champions League and he finishes seventh, in a span of about what 5 months, 5 6 months, he's got probably less than that. Is his career going to be any worse? The only way I think it gets worse is if it's literally a Potter situation where we're like, we absolutely spiral down the table. And, I think there's a lot of situations where you look at it and go, my career's got to be that dented because everyone knows this is a bit of a madhouse. And everyone knows that, the evidence behind me is that coaches of different stripes and experience keep on falling out with this hierarchy. So I'm not the problem. Like I'm not the only problem at this club. It's the people above me. And it may, we look at it from our own like vantage point, right? Like even if you go into a certain environment or a job that you think maybe is above you, like if you were in Match of the Day or in Sky and it only lasted like 6 months, think about the experience and the contacts you gain by having that in your career. Like that may also be a theory of Rosenior. Like he may also think like even if this doesn't last that long, it's a bold step in my career. Like Frank, I think would probably say, despite the bruises he took at Chelsea, it was a valid learning experience in his career. An opportunity over an obstacle. It was something that you learned from. Like, we're getting very like high performance podcast here. I'm sorry if people listened, right? But like it's I there is also probably a part of it as well. I'm going to start promoting Huel in a
High
minute. I got to
performance.
promise you, this is not Huel.
Oh my god. Oh god. If we just for a joke, if we could get a brand deal with Huel, I feel like. Do you know what? I feel like this is actually going to become a section.
This is the low performance
This is the low
podcast.
performance podcast. I feel like there is going to be right throughout this tenureship of Liam Rosenior, we are going to have some high performance podcast moments. I feel. I feel like that is.
We are.
I feel like I want to have Dan. I want a section every week. I want us to watch the fucking presser and go this week on a low performance podcast, and it's just something that's been said. And I was like, we'll just have to see what happens. So, oh dear, I don't know. But anyway, look, like, bottom line, right? We're getting behind him. We want him to do a good job. If things go wrong, we'll criticise. However, we know he's not fully the problem. That is what I think me and Dan are trying to say, and I think a lot of people will say. That's what you see from the CST. That's what you see from the Not a Project CFC boys. That's what you see from all these people that sort of are using their brain a little bit and going, look, like, it ain't his fault. He's not a DEI hire, which is one of the things I've been seeing consistently, which I find atrocious.
That sounds. That sounds far too American politics. Someone who knows American politics, that sounds far too American politics. Chatter coming into Chelsea discourse that terrifies
exactly.
me.
When everyone's like, "Oh, we just hired him because he's black," and like, fucking no, they hired him because he was at Strasbourg. Right? That's got nothing to do with his skin tone.
Yeah.
Right? They brought him in because he's part of this multi-club model, which fits. They could have gone for Felipe Luis. They didn't want to do it. They got him because they feel he fits. Fine, whatever. If it works for them, it works, and they look great.
They could have had a cat. They could have had a cat that was is their mate at Strasbourg, and that cat would have been employed because it's about the inner blue co circle. That's the point. They haven't done it for other reasons. I think PR wise, there'll be like a way of like, oh, look at us, like look at how progressive we are. The reason they've done it is because, and again, like I had a disagreement with Score about this. Like he was like thinking that I was saying that everyone they employ is rubbish. Like no, like this very inner circle, small way of looking at the football world can bring you from time to time some very good people. But I don't think I think it limits it, it very much shuts off a lot of potential talent, but it also, very much, naturally means that, it isn't always, having the strictest level of standards and like elite requirements, but you can, because we signed from Man City, we signed from players who've had a link to Man City, probably because of Joe Shields. We signed from Brighton for obvious reasons. You can get good players from that. Like that doesn't mean it, you can't by accident stumbled across some very good talent, but it means that you are missing a whole group, a whole batch of other talent
Yeah,
as well.
no, I agree. But look, no, undoubtedly, you and I are going to be having that conversation again in about 6 months' time. But whilst he's here, Liam Rosenior, welcome to Chelsea. Good luck, mate. I think is all we're going to say on that.
Good
Good
luck, mate.
luck. But looking forward to seeing him in the first game, obviously against Charlton.
This has been the High Performance Podcast. Thank you so much to Huel.
Honestly, if Huel would like to give us sponsorship, we have got some excellent numbers. Dan, do you know how much I've become a bit of a high performance podcaster? I've started posting regularly on LinkedIn.
Oh God.
I'm self-employed. I've got to do it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Unlike you, sitting in your ivory tower on your salary.
I'm slightly teasing there, to be honest. But LinkedIn, we could do a LinkedIn section each week. What has Liam Rosenior said in the press conference that could be a
I
LinkedIn
like
post?
that.
I think
I
that
like
was
that.
also,
And I think I might make that one of my weekly LinkedIn posts anyway. That'd be good because then I can actually gauge your response. Because say, right, let's see if anyone from LinkedIn agrees with this, and if anyone doesn't, I'll get all the.
or you can go. Here's a challenge for you: bring me LinkedIn or not. Basically, LinkedIn or not LinkedIn. Basically, you're gonna read two. You're gonna read two like things, two paragraphs to me. One of them is gonna be a statement from a coach, and another is going to be an actual LinkedIn post, and I have to gauge whether it's which one is the LinkedIn post.
Oh, I actually love that. Okay, I'll do that next week. We'll get that done for Charlton. Oh dear, but anyway, guys, this has been the Chelsea Echo. If you have enjoyed this, please do make sure you give us a 5-star review if you're listening on podcasts and platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, a like and a sub really helps us out. We're growing. We've got better things coming this year. A lot of stuff to come from myself, Dan, the score, Rambles, and everyone involved with the Chelsea Echo. But I have been Louis.
I've been Dan.
This has been the Chelsea Echo. See you later.